What does compensate mean? Well, compensate means you make up for something that is usually negative. For example, you might be compensated for a trip that is canceled by getting your money back plus $100. We compensate for taking something away. In math, it means you make up for a change you've done to the original problem. For example, you have 326 plus 72. You can change 326 to 330, so it's an easier number to add. 330 plus 72 is 402. After we've solved that new problem, now we need to compensate or make up the difference. In other words, we added 4 to 326, so now we need to subtract 4 from the answer. 402 minus 4 is 398. Let's check our work. 326 plus 72 does equal 398. Let's see how it works with subtraction.
So let's take the example 37 take away 19. The first step when using the compensation strategy for subtraction is to round the second number to the nearest 10. But to round to the nearest 10, you need to know your tens first. So in the pink box on the right over here, we can see all of our tens. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So now we can ask ourselves, what is the nearest tens for number 19? So if we look on the right side over here, what is number 19 closest to? So we know that number 19 is closest to 20, so we can circle that over here. So our next step is to write down the nearest 10, which is 20, in this box over here. Then your next step is to just rewrite the first number once again. So now we can ask ourselves, what is 37 take away 20? So 37 take away 20 is 17, so we can write that down. Your next step now is to write the answer that you got, which is 17, in the next box. So we have written that down here. Then another important step is to ask ourselves, how did we get from 19 to 20? So how much did we add to 19 to get to 20? Correct, we only added 1 to 19 to get to 20. So that number 1, we can just write it down over here. So now our last step is to ask ourselves, what is 17 plus 1? Which gives us 18. So our answer to 37 take away 19 equals 18. So now let's go through another example together. If we take the example 76 take away 28, the first step is to round the second number to the nearest 10. So now we can ask ourselves, what is the nearest tens for number 28? Correct, 28 is closest to 30, so we can circle that over here. Our next step is to write down the nearest 10, which is 30, in the next box over here. Then we can also rewrite the first number once again. So now we can ask ourselves, what is 76 take away 30? This gives us 46. So now your next step is to write down the answer that you got, which is 46, in the next box. And the next important step that we can ask ourselves is, how much did we add to 28 to get to 30? Correct, we only added 2 to 28 to get to 30. So now we can add that 2 over here in this box, and we can ask ourselves, what is 46 plus 2? That gives us 48. So our answer to 76 take away 28 is 48.
Let's take a look at it with some bigger numbers. For example, 3,151 minus 3,048. First, let's compensate by taking that second number and rounding it to the tens place. We get 3,151 minus 3,050. Much easier to do. The difference is 101. But now, since we added 2 to 3,048, we need to add 2 to our difference that we got. So we have to do 101 plus 2, which equals 103. So the difference between 3,151 minus 3,048 is 103. We can check our work by using inverse operations. In other words, you could write down 3,048 plus 103 and make sure that your addition and subtraction here are correct.